Good afternoon, everyone. TractorMan44 here. All right, now this is just completely off topic. I was actually down here doing a little sheet metal for my son's project, and I had to dig around on the back shelf, back in the back of the shed, to get some parts and pieces that I was needing. I stumbled across a couple of things that I thought maybe I'd just make a quick video on. It's kind of a silly little thing, you know, but I just wonder if there's any of you old timers out there, well, that knows exactly what I'm going to show you. But I'm going to show you 5 items sitting on the workbench. I'm going to enlighten you if you don't know what they are, and especially if you ain't never used one before. But take a look at this here. I just kind of like to see how many people remember these things or actually used them to any extent. There you go. Look at those 5 odd looking items here. I bet there ain't too many old farm boys that don't recognize those right off the bat. Of course, I don't know how many old farm boys watch any of my videos. To enlighten you, but you know, I talk about butchering and everything. You know, I don't know if you know some of the comments and everything. I say, well, we butchered a few hogs, you know, a couple of weeks back, you know, and stuff like that. And we're doing a couple of beef here coming up. We just did a beef last week. When it comes around to hog butchering, everybody always hears about scalding hogs. You know, everybody has heard that term. You know, and there ain't too many, you know, that younger than me that's gotten involved in that too much or to a great extent. At least around this area anyway. Your area might be entirely different. But it's kind of something that's gone by the wayside. And when I say it kind of gone by the wayside is, well, we kind of give it up, I don't know, back, oh my Lord, 25 years ago or so, I guess. Simply because we found a guy that would go ahead and scald them and scrape them and have them, gut them, and then chill them overnight. And he started out doing it for $6 a head. Me and my brother and my dad at that time, we said, man, you know, $6 a head, it ain't worth us getting the scalding vat out and all that stuff. We just went ahead and give it up. Now that's gone up a little bit in price, you know, so it doesn't cost us $6 a head anymore, a little bit more than that. But still, for the few that we do, it's not really worth the money that we'd save by setting up the scalding vat and getting all the pole wood and everything ready, you know, and all that. It really is a pain in the butt. The only reason we would do it anymore would be just to kind of pass that little bit of information on down to the next generation so they could see a little bit more about, you know, how we come up. But at any rate, back to scalding hogs, you know. Scalding usually is, you associate scalding with boiling water, you know. Well, first mistake you're going to make if you intend on scalding hogs is boiling that water and putting them hogs in there while that water is boiling. Boiling at atmospheric pressure is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. 212 degree boiling water when you drop a hog in is going to set that hair. Now what I mean by setting that hair, it literally will make that hair almost not want to come off. I mean, you have to work and work and work to get that hair to come off. All right, so the big trick is to not get the water that hot. Now the trick temperature is 144 degrees. 142, 144, somewhere around that general area. But the big trick to it is creating just a little bit of a lye atmosphere in that water, in that 144 degree water. And what you want to do is use some of the ash out of your fire that you're burning to heat your water, and you put that ash in there, and you swirl it around, swoosh it around till you get just a slight percentage of lye being developed, which will make the water feel real slick. Your hands will get real soft. You know, I ain't telling you to do that because, well, I tell you what, it's lye. You know, you're making your lye out of the ashes. You know, in the warm water, 144 degree water. So there's a degree of danger to it. You don't want to splat it in your face. You know, and all that stuff, and it's not even good for you. I'm sure it did eventually rot your skin off. But the old man always did it. He just knew exactly how much to put in, you know, because he knew about how many gallons of water we put in there and how many shovelfuls of ash. And then we just kind of stirred around. When it was just right, the old hogs would go right in there. That would just make that hair just slip right off the backs. You wouldn't even have to use your scrapers and everything, you know, your knives or whatever it is that you were using. Some people use tin can. When you got that just right, that hair would just come off, all except for around the snoot, the ears, underneath the arms, soft areas, things like that, and down the pig knuckles and everything. But anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent. We was talking about these funny looking things here. Now let me give you a little bit of a description. Remember this about scalding your hogs and everything, and how you got to get that hair off of there. You don't use butcher knives or anything. Let me show you. These things right here are called scraping bells. All right, this one here's a single bell. Doesn't have the smaller end on it, but once you scald your hog and you pull it up out of the water and you got him laying there, you just grab these. Yeah, we just kind of hold them like this right here and just scoop and scoop and scoop, just as long as swoops as you can, and it would just peel that hair right off of that skin just as fine and quick as could be. Everybody had their favorite scraper. This one right here, actually, I used a number of times as a youngster, and this one here was really my favorite. I think my brothers got the rest of the old ones we had out on the place, but at any rate, this one here I kind of nabbed it. This one here's my favorite. Now you wonder why you have two different sizes. Okay, this is for getting in and around the snoot. Up around the snoot, you pull their ears back and you dig in behind their ears, all that soft spots there where you can't, where you just won't come off, and then up under their armpits, you know, in between their legs and all that kind of stuff. That's what the smaller ones are for. Now, occasionally, the temperature will kind of cool down, and you'll have to take a bucket of that water with that little bit of a lye content and sloop it back up on top of that hog, and then go ahead and scrape that hair really quick. Then whenever you get done scraping, well, here, I'll just show you the rest of these. This one here has been kind of badly abused. It's kind of bent and everything. It'd work in a pinch, you know, but I wouldn't want to pinch it too hard. It ain't going to work that good. And then this guy here, this one here is pretty much decoration. This guy is so old, it's probably been 70, 80 years since the last time that thing's even seen a hog, you know. But it's kind of neat decoration set on a shelf. And then, of course, this is another one that's kind of bent and badly abused. But at any rate, back to scraping. Just a few seconds ago I said you don't use butcher knives or anything like that. Well, you really do. Once you get the majority of everything all scraped off with these guys here, there's a little hair still kind of around, you know. So that's whenever you would go ahead and slosh more water across that hog's back or around his belly or snoot, and that's when you take your old butcher knife and you go ahead and give him a quick shave. It sounds simple and easy, but it's really not. Some of that hair really is a problem, but it's a super problem if you literally scald that hog with that water way too hot. You know, it's like I say, the terminology is a little different than actuality. You do not run the water at that temperature. Now, like I said, this ain't a how to do it video, you know. I ain't even got a hog here, you know, but it's just kind of telling you some of the old ways and some of the old stuff that we done, what we come up on and how we done it, and the tools that we done it with. And it's kind of sad in some ways, you know, that part of our heritage is kind of behind us. But at the same time, on them cold mornings, we'd be out there straddling the skull of that, getting your feet wet, your legs wet, your hands wet, you know, splattered in your face. Man, I don't miss it. I only miss the nostalgia, you know, because when you wax nostalgic, you don't remember too much of the bad stuff. You have to sit back and think, man, your hands would get cold. Man, your feet would get cold. Man, when I was a kid, I had holes in my pants. My legs were always cold, you know. I don't miss that part of it at all. But I do kind of get a little bit sad, you know, that we quit. When I was a young adult, I was probably in my, I guess, mid-20s whenever we scalded our last hog. But that doesn't mean we couldn't go back and do them again tomorrow. Well, it'd have to be day after tomorrow. It'd take us a couple days to get the scalding vat set up. There really ain't nothing to it, you know. I always say if it was hard, heck, I wouldn't be able to do it. But then again, you know, I've never been the head butcher. I'm just kind of the purdy help in the background. You know what I mean? But at any rate, hey, I hope you enjoyed that little this silly little video. I gotta put these things back on the shelf, get back to my sheet metal project. So you know what? This is Tractor Man 44, and I am out of here. Hey, let me do a little bit of an addendum to what we were talking about concerning scalding those hogs. Remember, I said you would take a little bit of the ash and put the ash in the water, and that creates somewhat of a lye. Okay, everybody's heard of lye soap. Everybody's heard of Grandma's lye soap, and a lot of people make lye soap this damn time too. But at any rate, here's what had happened. There's a process called saponification. All right, and saponification is the process to where you take the triglycerides from animal fat and mix it with the sodium hydroxide, which is what lye is, and you mix that at the right temperatures and the right proportions, and stir that all up and everything, and then let it set for a little while, and it coagulates and becomes soap. You can add all kinds of scents and flavors and all kinds of stuff like that, make it all pretty. But the plain old basic Grandma's lye soap was just white as could be. All right, now they didn't have sodium hydroxide. Well, I guess they did, you know, but most of the old timers didn't have the wherewithal to run to the store and run to store and buy it. So they knew that you make your own lye by adding ashes to your water. All right, now you hear stories too, at least I always have, about man, I used some of Granny's lye soap and just just about burnt my hide off. All right, and that's true. I can remember that in the past. My sisters used to use some of the last lye soap that they'd made back whenever I was a kid, and they'd use that, by the old wringer wash machine, and they would scrub, my knees and everything, on my old dirty pants and the elbows and stuff from my dirty shirts with the grease and things like that wouldn't come out. But I remember those things. But anyway, you got to stop and think about the process of making your own lye by mixing ashes in with the water. Sometimes Granny would maybe put a little bit too much ash, into the water and make it just a little too caustic, you know what I mean? And sometimes different kind of ashes, all ash ain't the same, different kind of wood would make different kinds of ash, which means that you didn't really have a way. If you put an exact amount of ash in with an exact amount of water this time, it's not necessarily going to be the same the next time, depending on what kind of wood made that ash. So at any rate, it was not a real calculated thing. They just did by experience, and sometimes it did get a little bit on the tough side. This day and time, though, people that make their own glycerin-based soap, our homemade lye soap, like we do, me and my daughters. Actually, my one daughter makes it. It's been a couple of years since she's made a batch or two, but I've been honored to make some more. Now you can actually measure in a specific amount of sodium hydroxide, lye crystals, Drano, so to speak, right straight off the Walmart shelf, and you can predict the outcome, or just about predict the outcome, as to the degree of mildness that your soap is going to have. It's so much more easily manufactured today than it was back in the day whenever Granny made lye soap with her homemade lye water. So whenever I was talking about scalding the hogs and you put them ashes in that water, that's exactly what you're doing. You are creating lye. I remember, my hands would just get just as soft as could be, just the time it would take us to scrape however many hogs we were doing, 6, 8, 10, 12 hogs, whatever, but the old man, he'd stand at the end of the scalding vat and he'd go ahead and he'd just keep adding those ashes, and he'd swoop his hand down in there and feel it and everything, like that. And he never did complain about his fingernails falling off or anything like that, but it wasn't good for him, And so consequently, the reason I'm telling you that is y'all can do that, not on my suggestion by any stretch of imagination, but that's how they did it. Now, how they figured out that process is just beyond me. I guess there was alchemists and stuff back before, in the early times, they passed all that information down. But at any rate, that process of using those triglycerides and sodium hydroxide is called the process of soponification. Now, I suspect that that's where the word soap came from, was a shortened version or a portion of the word saponification from centuries ago. Now, that's just my 2 cents worth. I have no idea if that's true or not, but that's what I suspect. This is an addendum to my addendum, but this is the reason why I've been on my daughter to make another batch or two of lye soap. I'm down to my very last 2 bars. Now, we make them just a little bit smaller. This, by the way, happens to be molded in a Velveeta box rectangle. And then we've got a little guillotine that my son-in-law made. It's got some slots in it, and we got this little wiggly knife that once this cures for about 24 to 48 hours, and it's still reasonably soft, you put the block of soap into that guillotine and then slice it into individual bars. So these consequently are just a little bit smaller than a normal bar. Then you can't use it. It's got to sit on a shelf and completely cure for roughly 6 weeks, and then you can go ahead and use it. This stuff here is at least 2 years old. You can see a little discoloration. Doesn't really matter. You can see it's a little whiter on top. It doesn't really matter. This is a very good, very mild soap. Not as pretty as a bar of soap, but it's got a good feeling. Knowing that you've rendered the lard and did the process and made it yourself. And whenever she makes a batch, I have enough that lasts me a pretty good while out of it. So anyway, I thought I would show you a generic type of homemade soap. not necessarily a designer soap like you see all tied up with the fancy bows in the gift shops and things like that. You know, those have their place too. But this is just a basic, functional, simple, old homemade lye soap. That's very easy, very simple to do with just about any kind of animal fat. But at any rate, this time, for sure, this Tractor Man 44, and I am out of here.